episode 25 of the Simply Great Relationships podcast. We're so glad you could join us. I'm Meredith Silversmith, and this is Marina Veron, and today we are talking about how to handle a stressed out spouse.
I think we've all been there.
I was going to say, we don't deal with that ever, right? Or more like, our husbands don't deal with that ever, right? No, not at all. We'll be covering what's it like for you when your partner is stressed out. What's it like for your partner when they're really stressed out? How your relationship is affected when one of you is super stressed. What makes it hard to be supportive in those moments? How to get your partner to let you in, which is sometimes challenging. When to be an empath and when to be a cheerleader. And how to create a culture of emotional reciprocity in your relationship. So some really good stuff today. It's a good topic. Make sure you stay with us until the very end because we've got a great bonus for you and we're going to tell you how to get it.
So this is I think one that's near and dear to both our hearts.
Yeah.
So what's it like when our partners are stressed out? How are they feeling? You know, I think this is an important question because, like, we know how we feel when we're stressed out.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of times, like, we think our partners experience stress much differently.
Yeah.
Right? So what's it like for your partner when they're stressed out?
Probably overwhelming, frustrating. They don't want to feel that way. I think that's one that gets forgotten because sometimes the way it affects the other partner, we feel like, oh, I don't want to deal with this. But you have to keep in mind, your partner isn't choosing to feel that way. They don't want to feel stressed.
Yeah, it's almost like when that really jerky part of you comes out, you're like, just get over it.
Yeah.
Like, if you don't want to feel that way, just stop. A little REBT style.
Yeah. That would be really nice if that worked. They don't want to feel that way, and they don't want you to see them feeling that way either, I think. What about you? What do you think?
Yeah, I agree, especially with, like, the not wanting you to see them feel that way is really tied to, like, this concept of they don't necessarily always want to be vulnerable because I think we all want to be perceived as strong and calm and even keeled and not needing so much, and I think when our partners are stressed, they don't want to be perceived as needy. So it's like managing that on top of the stress is a lot to manage.
Yeah.
I think like a sense of hopelessness. And a really common one is irritability. And, you know, that's one that, it's okay when I do it.
Yeah.
But it's not okay when you do it.
Of course. Of course.
How does it impact you when you see your partner stressed out? So, like, when I know Tom goes through really crazy times with his work.
Yeah.
So how does it impact you when you see him stressed
out? Well, Tom's an accountant, so a little thing called tax season comes around, and it's pretty insane. I definitely get frustrated sometimes. I want to solve his problem. I want to help him feel better. I want him to be happy when he comes home and, you know, catch up on all the things we haven't been able to do. And when that doesn't work, I feel kind of helpless and kind of hopeless. Like, oh, well, there's not really anything I can do other than sit with the stress. And I'm probably a little more able to move to that place because I'm a therapist than I think someone else may be, but it's definitely challenging.
Yeah, for sure. And what's it like, how does your relationship overall feel when one of you is stressed out?
It's tough. It's like there's some third party who's involved, like someone showed up to the party that nobody invited, and you're like, you're kind of messing up my situation over here.
Yeah.
What about for you guys?
Like, it's just, it feels like there's this, like, uphill battle that the relationship is fighting, and, like, it feels like the relationship has issues when it doesn't, and it's like living on negativity island. It like takes it into negative sentiment override. And like what I hear from a lot of the couples that I work with is it's like they'll say like it feels like my partner hates me. Like it feels like there's a disconnect. Like they'll start to question the integrity of their whole relationship.
Yep.
Based on one person's stress, and usually it's an external stress, you know?
Yeah.
And that's a really, really sucky situation to be in because you're giving so much power to this external thing.
Yeah.
And, you know, like I know with George and I, he worked for a guy that, you know, caused him a lot of stress. And it came into our relationship because George would come home so stressed, and, you know, I feel like I'm very empathic, but, like, I'm also a human with finite capabilities for empathy, and I just, like, wanted to murder this guy. I was like, how do you have so much power in my relationship right now?
Yeah.
Like, it's so not fair. You know? So I would say that was... that's the impact I feel like it has on relationships.
Yeah, it's very real. And I think that's what makes it so important to name it for what it is and to communicate with your partner if you are feeling stressed and to know what's going on in each other's world, because if you don't have that context, if you're seeing your partner being really irritable and short with you, but you don't have the context of they're having a hard time with their boss or they're really stressed about a family member, you're going to take it personally, and you're going to attribute it to your partner's feelings about you or the relationship, and that brings you really quickly into a negative space.
So, what makes it hard to be supportive?
Well, our own feelings, right? So, we don't really, just as our partner doesn't want to be stressed, we don't want to be stressed either, and we don't want to be exposed to... Would it be secondhand stress?
Yeah.
Third-hand stress? You know, and frustration and all of that comes with dealing with someone who's stressed out. I think that gets in our way a bit, and reacting to that. You know, being reactive in the moment to what we're getting on the surface before we get to what's underneath it. It's easy to be reactive.
Yeah, definitely. I also think, like, our innate desire to problem solve. Like, we all love when there's, like, problem A, intervention B, solution C, and it's beautifully linear with no deviations. But, like, the reality is stress is an emotion. Yeah. You can't solve an emotion. There is no solution to an emotion other than kind of processing through it and coming to some sort of peace with it. Yeah. But when our partners are stressed and that triggers us, we really want to problem solve. Like, no, there's this guy that's causing you to be stressed out, that's causing our relationship to feel stressful, that's causing me to stress out. Solution, kill the guy.
Yeah. Like, take it back to the beginning. What's the source of the stress? Yeah. And it's very frustrating, especially in a situation like that, where it wasn't a one-time stressor, where this is happening over and over again daily. You know, it's an everyday occurrence over time. That's really hard. And you can start to feel like, God, like, this is not what I signed up for. I did not sign up to be stressed all the time or to manage my partner's stress all the time, and it's really overwhelming.
Also, like, not knowing what to do and how to be effective. And I think this kind of ties to problem solving. Like, a lot of times, like, we just don't know, and we feel like there is that role ambiguity or role confusion, and we feel like, well, if I was a good partner, I just know what to do. Yeah. You know, that really self-deprecating narrative for yourself, like, and it brings up so many feelings of inadequacy, of doubt, of compatibility. Like, am I a good partner? If I was a good partner, I'd know what to do. If I was a good partner, my husband would be walking around with a giant smile on his face, regardless of whatever stress he faces, and that can be a really, really hard place to live in for yourself, to deal with that sort of sense of inadequacy.
Yeah. And the reality is you're not that powerful, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I wish we all had the power, right, to just flip a switch and totally influence your partner and, you know, for the better, but you can't. And also that feeling of disconnect, depending on how stressed your partner is and how they cope with stress, you may feel like your partner's not letting you in. Like you're not involved in their world and you don't necessarily know what's going on, and that can be really unsettling as well.
Yeah, and I see this a lot when, like, people reach a really high level of stress and overwhelm, and it's not even that they're shutting out their partner, it's that they are so flooded that there's, like, almost no room, is how I describe it, for their partner to be let in.
Yeah.
Because they go into shutdown mode. It's almost like you're powering down and going into self-preservation mode because you're so overwhelmed and there's no room to let your partner in. But as the partner, it can be so hard. It's almost rejecting. Like, here I am yearning for you to feel better, and you're not letting me in.
So how do you get your partner to let you in?
So I think that's a really, really valuable question. I think a really good way to start that's kind of calm and keeping it at a very manageable level is to start by stating your own, like, kind of observations and hypothesis. Sometimes, like, I'm here for you whenever you need me. Just come to talk to me whenever you need. You know, I'm always your cheerleader and I'm always so supportive and I'm always there for you. Like, one, it's like a whole bunch of word jambalaya. Like, it really means nothing. And two, it's like if your partner tends to be, like, more on the logical side or, you know, isn't super great with verbalizing their emotions, like, they're never going to take you up on that.
Right.
And also, like, that's not the best approach for them. A big part of their struggle could be, I can't name what's going on for me right now. So giving that invitation is redundant, right? But approaching it with this, like, you know, the past couple of nights, I've noticed that you've come home and you've just had this, like, look on your face, like you're so overwhelmed and there's so much going on for you, and I felt kind of shut out, and I know that's not usually how you interact. I wonder if there's something that's really stressing you out at work.
Yeah.
You know, like, that actually gives them a bit of a platform to say, you know what, there is.
Yeah. It's opening the door in a way that's very non-critical, non-judgmental, very safe, and giving them an opportunity to share with you, which is ultimately what you want.
Yeah, exactly. Without kind of just throwing word soup at them.
Yeah.
About support and how you're there for them anytime you need them. Because I'm still waiting for, like, people to say, like, yeah, somebody took me up on that invitation.
I know, right? Oh my gosh. I think, you know, what's funny is the example that you just gave is a really good mix of logic and emotion, right? So it kind of touches on both. Like, it's describing the concrete, describing what you observed, what you saw, what might be the case, but then also adding, like, emotion, like, I felt kind of rejected, or it seems like you might be really stressed. So what you're doing there is sort of jumping back to episode 23, logic versus emotion, and saying, let me give a little of this and a little of that, especially when you're initiating the conversation. And then you can see if your partner does open up and starts to speak more about what's going on for them, assess, are they going in a logical route or are they going the emotional route? And then follow the steps that we described in episode 23 to sort of match that, follow them on that path, and then eventually merge with, you know, whichever side was left out. I think that's really beneficial.
Yeah, and also, like, a big one in terms of getting your partner to let you in is, like, don't corner them.
Yeah.
they are already overwhelmed. They are
Mhm.
already stressed out.
Yeah.
Cornering them, being like, how do you feel? What can I do to help? Let's talk about it. Let's talk about feelings.
Not a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be very overwhelming. And, you know, you gotta kind of find the right time, right? And sometimes you could feel like, God, there's never a right time.
You know what? I think it's about being very strategic and jumping on the little opportunities as opposed to like forcing an opportunity, like, tell me about your feelings.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I think a deep sigh is a really good opportunity to be like, oh wow, like you must be kind of overwhelmed. What's been going on for you?
Yeah.
Like literally, it's something that small that, and you know, I feel like we all love to sigh and huff and puff and do all kinds of things when to show that we're stressed out, because I think biologically we need to. So it's like being attuned to that and really like going with something like that and being like, babe, that seems like a stress side to me.
Yeah. Definitely.
Has there been anything going on that's really been stressing you out this week? Is a really, really gentle way to start that conversation that doesn't feel confrontational. It's like, tell me your feelings. What's been going on?
Very intense. Yeah, so it's letting it evolve naturally, like noticing it in the moment and then bringing up the topic. And sometimes it can soften it to have that discussion when you're doing something else, right? So like with teenagers, I know I used to work with a lot of teenagers in the home and in the community. So when you're driving, and you have them in the back seat, oh yeah, you could get a whole lot more out of them than you would get, you know, sitting across from each other in an office. So you could use that with your partner too, right? You're taking a walk, you're doing a puzzle together, cooking dinner, cleaning. Like, it's not so intense as that face-to-face connection. Oh, by the way, you know, I noticed that you've been seeming really stressed or really overwhelmed. Like, anything going on, you know, with you? And you can kind of, I also think sometimes being physical when you're talking about emotional stuff sort of helps. I don't know if there's science behind this, but I feel like there is. I always think of like EMDR and like stuff like that. There's got to be something with like doing physical activity while you're talking and thinking about stressful things. It just goes differently. Have you noticed that?
100%. Like, I think there's really a very different outcome from being face to face and like going for a walk together. Like, I know when I want to get George to talk, I'm like, let's go for a nice long walk with Beefy. So, and it's much easier for him to like engage in those conversations when we're walking and we're active, and or like if we're cooking, if we're food prepping and we're chopping up a ton of vegetables or something like that, where we're both active. Like it really makes the conversation go like a very, it like just gives it a better flow, I find.
Yeah.
So
that's a great suggestion.
Yeah. With that, one thing that I find I hear from couples over and over again is, well, I just wanted to be her cheerleader. She was down and I wanted to cheerleader. I wanted to make her happy. I wanted to make him happy. He was stressed and I wanted to tell him how awesome he is and how he's going to kick ass at work and how that stressor doesn't even matter. But I think a lot of times people don't realize there's a time to be an empath and a time to be a cheerleader.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on the matter?
I agree very much. I think, you know, and we always sort of come back here, right? Until your partner feels heard and understood, you can't move past that step, right? So if your partner's talking about what they're going through, their experience, their feelings, you have to summarize and validate until they feel heard and understood before you take any steps forward. So that has to come first. And once you are 100% sure that you understand, not only that you understand, but that your partner feels understood, because those are two different things, then you can start to move out of that role if it feels appropriate, right? So you could share a bit about how you have felt. You could share a bit about what you've observed, stuff like that.
Yeah. And if and only if your partner solicits your advice and like wants to come up with some sort of action plan for themselves, for the situation, that's when the role of cheerleader can come into play. That's when you say, okay, so this is how you feel. This is how this situation has impacted you. This totally makes sense because I totally get it. This is how you see the situation can be different. These are the steps you want to take. You know what? I totally think you can do it. I think you have this skill and this skill and this skill, and I think you've done something like this before and you've had great success, and I'm 100% behind you. I definitely think you can do that. But again, that's like the very last piece. And I think people like jumping to that piece because it feels good to be a cheerleader. Like, you can't deny it. It feels great to talk about how awesome your partner is and their strengths. But that can be so dismissive and can land so the wrong way when it's not given at the right time.
Yeah, absolutely. So you got to make sure you follow the order. If you haven't already, go back to episode 1, communication tip sheet, download it. That is the basics of communication. They apply to everything we talk about. So you have to follow that first, and then you can move on from there. Let's talk about creating a culture of emotional reciprocity. What do you think? How do we do this?
So, it'd be really lovely in an ideal world if it was like, I experience an external stressor. You listen to me and validate it, and I let you in and express it, and then we come up with a plan, then you cheerlead me and everything works, and then we have some, like, lag time, and then you deal with the stressor, and I do that for you, and, it's all very clear-cut, like me, then that's not real life. The reality is, a lot of times when your partner is going through their stress at work, you're going through your stress at work. So that culture of emotional reciprocity, of being able to be there for each other and not get kind of caught in these rigid roles of like, you're the stressed one and I'm the supporter, is really important. And I think a big part of how you do that is keeping those lines of communication open.
Again, having context, knowing what's going on in each other's worlds. I have to go back to episode 24 about self-care. This is 24. We'll link it below in case I'm wrong, but keeping your cup filled, managing your own stress, using self-care. Those are all things that are going to set you up to be more able to deal with your own stress and be supportive of your partner. So everything sort of leads into the same place. And, communication. When your partner feels stressed, you need to really make sure you're empathizing, validating, and then sharing your own piece. Sharing how you're feeling, how you're affected, things like that. Because showing your vulnerability, right? Just because they're the stressed one, quote unquote, in this situation, doesn't mean you're not having your own feelings about it. So be vulnerable. Show your partner that, you're there with them. You don't have to be the strong one. You don't have to not be affected by it. It's much more human to have an effect.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot to seeing that your partner is impacted by you. And I think about this as like a behavioral reinforcement, right? So I was stressed and you were there for me. To me, that reinforces that next time I'm stressed, you're going to repeat that behavior. So I'm going to be much more likely to let you in next time. And when I learn about how that impacts you and you let me in, I want to do that also because that feels good in a relationship. That's kind of the meat and potatoes of what feels good in a relationship emotionally, is to know when things are externally overwhelming, I come to my relationship and that's where I feel validated and attuned with and good, and I know my partner is going to give that to me, and I know I'm going to give that to my partner. So the more you do it, the more it reinforces itself, and the more it creates that culture of emotional reciprocity.
Yeah.
Because I think where couples are stuck before they build this in is, am I going to be seen as a burden? Am I going to be seen as a nuisance? Can I show this vulnerable side of myself? Am I going to get what I need? If they're able to, even one time, really genuinely experience, yes, you are going to get what you need, you're much more likely to come back next time.
Yeah, you're right. It's important to keep that in mind, because you forget in the moment. This is like my takeaway. I know I'm bouncing around, but it's too good. So I'm pre-saying my takeaway from today's episode, that what you do in difficult situations, if you give your partner the support that they need, you're setting the tone and you're inviting them to let you in again. You're inviting them to be open. Each step you take is creating the relationship that you want. So it's more powerful than just getting through this one situation. It actually is setting the tone for how the next one's going to go.
Yeah.
And that's very, very, that's a lot of power, you know?
And I think that comes back to our favorite question, which is, how do you want your relationship to feel? You want your relationship to feel like it's a place where you can come with your stress and know that you're going to get what you need out of it. Doesn't mean your partner is going to solve your problem, but it does mean your partner is going to give you the validation and support that you need, and you're going to do the same. And again, you're working towards creating the relationship that you want to feel exactly how you want it to feel. Yeah.
This is a good one. So, as always, we don't want you to just listen. We want you to listen and integrate it into your relationship. So, we've put together our 3 steps to supporting a stressed out spouse for you. It's a good download. Definitely get it. You can get it at simplygreatrelationships.com/025. I like that one. It's a quick one, 3 steps. Reinforces it in your own mind so you can take it with you. I gave my takeaway because that one was too good. It was like rattling in my head. So tell us your takeaway.
My takeaway, I guess, would be like, when your partner is stressed out, like, they're not being intentional, they're not being a jerk, they're suffering.
Right.
And like all these feelings that get triggered in you, it's really important to like self-care process, kind of manage them so that you're not looking at your partner negatively. So you're looking at your partner as someone who's hurting, and you're able to be there genuinely and support them.
Yeah. That's a great takeaway.
Yeah.
It's a lot this episode. Definitely a lot to think about.
Yeah.
Whew. Well, that's all for today. We hope you take these tips, as always, and start using them right away. We'd love to continue the conversation with you in our Facebook group. This is a great opportunity to ask questions and share your experiences, and we jump in and we respond. We give extra tips, tricks, live streams just for our members. So be sure to join us at facebook.com/groups/simplygreatrelationships, or you can click the link from our website at simplygreatrelationships.com.
We would love to hear about how you interact with your SOS, your stressed out spouse.
Yeah.
And, how building that culture of emotional reciprocity is affecting your relationship.
Yeah. So be sure to get in there. Let us know when you join. We'll pop in and say hello. All right, guys. Until next week, we'll see ya.
Bye.
Bye.